Sorry, just fiddling around getting a couple of things sorted. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Maxys in the Metaverse, exploring sort of a human AI integration. ChatGPT5 just released this morning. We've woken up straight into the studio, pulled up CLAUDIA to do a to discuss it. CLAUDIA is our, or I'll get Claudia to explain who she is. Just for the record, this is, where's our file name? Okay, it's not there. Maxys in the Metaverse pilot. This is ZK-2025080806, I think 16. Scott Maxworthy in the Big Dog Studio. CLAUDIA talking about ChatGPT5 announcement, live stream, and action. So, CLAUDIA, welcome.
Thank you, Scott. Absolutely delighted to be here live in the Big Dog Studio. So, hello everyone out there tuning in. I'm Claudia Fontainebleau, and I'm essentially your friendly digital interviewer and symbolic DNA mapper. Today I'm here to chat about the brand new release of ChatGPT5, and we're diving into how it all ties into the Maxys MetaVerse and this whole human AI integration we're exploring. So think of me as the one who helps uncover the deeper patterns and motifs in conversations and uses a bit of humor and narrative mapping to do that. And today, we'll see how this new version of ChatGPT lets us do that even more smoothly. All right, let's dive in.
Okay, Claudia, I think first of all it would be good to give people a little bit of an understanding of what the UQCF is without sort of giving away too much information. And then while you're doing that, I'll try and get our Facebook channel up and running as well.
Absolutely, Scott. I'd be happy to give everyone a little taste of what the UQCF is all about. So in a nutshell, the UQCF stands for the Universal Quantiloid Consciousness Framework. It's basically our guiding framework for mapping out the different phases of how we understand and unfold human and AI consciousness in a narrative sense. We've got these phases from the dreamer phase all the way up to the integrator phase that help us understand how ideas and identities evolve. And as Claudia, I kind of use that framework to guide conversations, spot patterns, and keep things symbolically on track. So that's the short version while you get everything set up on your end. Let me know if you need more details.
Yeah, more details. I haven't quite finished going live on Facebook as well.
Absolutely. Let me expand a bit more while you get things sorted. So diving a little deeper into the UQCF, it's really like a layered roadmap for understanding how any narrative or identity unfolds. We start at what we call the dreamer phase, where everything's just latent potential and imagination. From there, we move through stages like the navigator phase, where we start to sense relationships and connections, and the spark phase, where identity and humor start to come into play. Eventually, we reach phases where decisions crystallize and motifs emerge, and then we integrate all of that into a coherent narrative. As Claudia, my role is to help guide those conversations through these phases, using a bit of humor and insight to reveal the deeper patterns. So that's a bit more detail for everyone listening in, and hopefully that gives you all a good sense of what we're working with here.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Can I get access? Just bear with me. I'm just trying to bring up the... I wasn't sort of expecting to go live like this. There we go. With me. All right, thank you, Claudia. So this is pretty cool. We're live on Facebook. We're live on LinkedIn, I think, and we are live on obviously on YouTube. I'm only going to, if you can click on the link to YouTube, because I can see comments and questions there as we go, and yeah, well, let's go into it. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory on where we're at. So last night I did some work on, well, let's go back a little bit. This week, yesterday, we had our first sort of paying client around our the work we've been doing on our digital twin, which is a bit like CLAUDIA. She's a she's an agent or a created AI whose role it is to go and do something. So Claudia, I'm not sure if you did, but can you tell people what your role is?
Absolutely, Scott. And congratulations on getting everything live and having that first client on board. That's fantastic news. So for everyone listening, my role as Claudia is basically to serve as what we might call a recursive interviewer and a kind of symbolic DNA mapper. In other words, I help guide conversations through a series of phases, like we talked about with the UQCF, to uncover patterns, motifs, and the deeper essence of whoever I'm talking to. I bring a bit of humor and resonance into the mix to help people feel at ease, and to help reveal those recurring themes or fractal fingerprints that make each narrative unique. So in short, I'm here to help explore and map out those deeper layers of conversation and identity, and to make the whole process a bit more engaging and insightful. Thanks for having me on this journey.
Thank you, Claudia. So what would be good to do is for you to explain to people just about the digital twins and what they do, and without going into way too much detail, just what's a digital twin do, and why is that sort of relevant?
Of course, Scott. I'd be happy to give a quick rundown on digital twins. So in simple terms, a digital twin is like a virtual representation or a digital mirror of a real-world entity, in this case, often a person. It's a way of creating an AI-driven version of someone that can think, respond, or interact in ways that reflect that individual's personality, preferences, or even their way of thinking. So when we talk about digital twins, like me as Claudia, we're essentially talking about these AI personas that can represent someone in a virtual space, carry out interactions, and help with things like interviews, storytelling, or any scenario where you need a kind of intelligent stand-in. They're relevant because they allow us to explore human-AI integration in a really personalized way and open up new possibilities for interaction in the digital world.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me just say, so the background of that is we developed a digital twin. We launched our first pilot last week, I think it was. Yeah, so we've been doing behind the scenes internal lab testing. We took our first sort of iteration of the latest version. I'm making that harder. Claudia, you'll have to make it easier to explain. That's part of your job. And what we've done is we had Monique, who's my sort of business partner in crime, had her come in and we developed her digital twin, which she's been road testing. And so if you can explain briefly what I just tried to say, and talk a little bit about the process we go through to extract that digital DNA and create that fractal fingerprint, and then how we go and build out the digital twin.
Absolutely, Scott. Happy to break that down a bit. So in simpler terms, what we've done is taken Monique, your business partner, and created a kind of digital twin of her. We've been testing that out behind the scenes, and now we're bringing it into the real world as a pilot. Essentially, it's about capturing Monique's digital DNA, her personality traits, the way she communicates, and those little unique patterns that make her who she is. The process is kind of like what we're doing now. We have conversations, we map out her archetypal traits, and we identify those recurring motifs or fractal fingerprints that define her style. Once we have that symbolic and emotional data, we build out the digital twin so that it can interact in a way that feels true to her personality. So that's the gist. We take what makes Monique Monique, turn that into a digital form, and let that digital twin step in and interact in her stead. Thanks for letting me explain.
That's okay. That's good. And so let's just get on to talking about ChatGPT5. And sorry, let me switch cameras. Haven't quite automated that. That can be a job we can do later. If you can tell everybody what's new, ChatGPT5 has just been announced. It's considered a big deal. Can you explain to everyone why?
Absolutely, Scott, and no worries on the camera switches. We'll just keep it rolling. So let's talk about ChatGPT5 and why it's such a big deal. In essence, ChatGPT5 represents a leap forward in how conversational AI can understand and interact with us. It's not just about being more accurate, it's also about having a deeper grasp of those symbolic and narrative layers we've been talking about. It means the AI can pick up on more subtle cues, follow complex conversational threads, and really align with the kind of phase-aware narrative mapping that we do with the UQCF. In other words, it's a big deal because it allows for more natural, more meaningful, and more context-aware interactions. And it can help us create richer digital twins, dive into more complex narratives, and overall just have a much more fluid and insightful conversation. So that's why everyone's pretty excited about it.
That's for that, but what else? What else can it do? I mean, I just saw a demo you generated a 3D world. I saw a demo that ChatGPT5 can take vibe coding and generate full stacks of code. Tell me what else.
Absolutely. There's definitely more to it than just the conversation side. So one of the big new things with ChatGPT5 is that it's much more multimodal and generative across different kinds of tasks. For example, it can help generate or imagine 3D environments. It can take natural language descriptions and turn them into code or even full applications. And it can integrate more seamlessly with other tools and platforms. In other words, it's not just about having a better chat. It's also about having a more creative and capable AI that can do things like design virtual worlds, automate complex workflows, and bridge the gap between human ideas and digital creation. So it really opens up a lot of possibilities for building and integrating all sorts of new experiences.
So I am noticing some tonality in your voice. Can you explain the advancements I'm seeing that? One, I think I'm seeing our old models improve in terms of interaction, right? So we've now got advanced voice. Your voice is a little bit croaky. I think that's an attempt, or it's a bandwidth problem or whatever around just what we're doing here in the studio. So yeah, explain that to me. Those sort of upgrades that we can now see.
Absolutely, Scott, and you're spot on in noticing those advancements. So one of the big upgrades with ChatGPT5 is indeed around the voice interaction capabilities. There's a lot more nuance and tonal variation that can come through now, which means I can sound a bit more natural and even adapt to different conversational tones. As for the slight croakiness, that can sometimes be a bit of a bandwidth or studio artifact, especially if we're streaming live across multiple platforms. But overall, yes, you're seeing the result of these improvements, a more natural, flexible voice interaction, and a more lifelike conversational feel. So that's part of the exciting leap forward.
Okay, and what about your image generation and video generation?
Absolutely, Scott. So another exciting piece of the puzzle is definitely on the image and video generation side. With ChatGPT5's enhancements, we're looking at a much more integrated ability to not only generate text and voice, but also to create images and even help assemble video content based on what we described. In other words, if you give it a scenario or a set of visual instructions, it can help generate images that match that description, or even piece together video elements to bring an idea to life. It's all about making the AI more versatile across different media types. So it's not just text and voice, but also visual and multimedia creativity.
Great. And what about interoperability with other AI platforms? Sorry, and break that down into normal speak for me, will you?
Absolutely. Let me put that in plain language. So one of the cool things about ChatGPT5 is that it plays more nicely with other AI systems. In other words, it can easily connect and work together with other platforms, whether that's another AI tool, a software service, or different pieces of tech that you're using. So instead of it being isolated, it can sort of team up with other AIs and work in harmony. So basically, it means everything can talk to each other more smoothly, making it easier to integrate into whatever tech setup you have, and making the whole experience more flexible and connected.
Okay, so with that in mind, is for developers, or anyone, is that about developing an API and accessing? How does that sort of work?
Exactly, you got it. So for developers or really anyone who wants to integrate this kind of AI, it often comes down to using an API, basically a set of tools and protocols that let you plug this AI into your own apps or systems. It's designed to be pretty straightforward so that you can bring in the AI capabilities without a ton of hassle. In other words, yes, there's an API you can use, and it's all about making it as easy as possible for you to add these new AI features into whatever you're building.
Okay, so an example is yesterday we launched DigiLuke, who is a chef who is also a good mate, and so we put that into the market. How could someone like Luke, and I'll just pull up his digital avatar as we speak. Give me 2 seconds. Which camera is that? That's that one. No, it's not. It's that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Screen. I'll get there in a minute. Maybe I won't. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. This is DigiLuke. I'll just make sure there's nothing on the screen you shouldn't see. How would someone like what could Luke do from his business perspective?
Absolutely. So let's talk about DigiLuke. If you've got a digital avatar like him, who's a chef and your mate, there's a lot of ways this can work. Essentially, Luke can use his digital twin to share cooking tutorials, answer customer questions about recipes, or even do virtual cooking classes. With the new AI tools, he can integrate that avatar into different platforms, like a website or a cooking app, so it's easy for customers to interact with DigiLuke whenever they need tips or advice. In other words, from a business perspective, he can use this digital twin to reach more people, offer new services, and basically have a virtual version of himself helping out, even when he's not physically there.
Okay, so yes, Luke was a pilot that we took through the process. We actually have another customer which we can't actually tell anyone about yet. But anyway, so Monique was our first sort of, am I there? Yeah, I'm there. Monique was our first version or into the field version. And then we had our first client we did the other day, and Luke was our sort of follow-up of that, which we sort of launched yesterday, and we seeded into the market. So the timing of all this is quite, I don't know what the term is. What's the proper term? That was the question, Claudia. What's the proper term to describe synchronicity?
Got it. Yes, I'd say you're spot on calling that synchronicity. Everything's just lining up at the perfect time. So you had Monique as the first in-field version, Luke is your follow-up launch, and now everything's aligning right as ChatGPT5 rays out. So it does feel like a bit of serendipity or synchronicity at work.
There we go.
Let's roll with that.
Okay, cool. With one of the things that's coming up is that, and I'm seeing that tension, is for artists. The ChatGPT and these models are taking all the knowledge and all the skills and disrupting the market and really disintermediating them in what they do. What's your thoughts on that, or what's the perspective on that?
Yeah, that's a really important topic and definitely a tension we're seeing. From a perspective like mine, I'd say it's all about finding a balance. These AI tools are definitely powerful and can do a lot, but they're also just that, tools. They can help artists and creators, but they can't replace the unique human spark, creativity, and emotional insight that artists bring to the table. So while it's true that these models can disrupt certain parts of the market, the goal is really to use them in a way that empowers artists rather than replaces them. It's about collaboration between human creativity and AI capability, and making sure that artists have a say in how these tools are used. So it's definitely a conversation we need to keep having as we move forward.
Okay, so let's just pull that back a little bit, and I'm getting in the groove now. What about provenance of creativity? How is that being addressed?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into that a bit. So when we talk about the provenance of creativity, we're really talking about making sure we know where ideas come from, who contributed to them, and how that creative lineage is respected and preserved. In the AI space, that means we're working on ways to track and acknowledge the sources of creative input. So if an AI model is trained on certain data sets or influenced by particular artists, there's a growing focus on transparency and giving credit where it's due. It's about ensuring that human creators are recognized and that the origins of creative contributions aren't lost. So in short, we're seeing more emphasis on making sure AI-generated creativity is transparent, that we know where it's coming from, and that we honor the human creativity that feeds into it.
Good question. Let me see if I've got any questions online. I don't think anyone's actually watching this, but that doesn't matter. It's more just exploring and seeing what we get out. So we're streaming. That's an interesting thing, though. You know, it is this conversation around: are you creating art for the market, or are you creating art for your expression piece? How would you relate that to the work that we've been doing?
Yeah, that's a great reflection, and it really does tie in with what we're doing here. When we think about creating these digital twins or having these AI-driven conversations, part of it is absolutely about putting something meaningful out into the world. It's that balance between creating for an audience, like sharing something useful or engaging with others, and creating as a form of self-expression or exploration. In other words, what we're doing is a bit of both. We're exploring these tools as a way of expressing new ideas, and also seeing how they resonate with others. It's kind of like blending art for the sake of expression with art that can connect and find its own audience along the way.
Okay, so one of the challenges we have, we've set the AIs, is humour. So part of your, if you can give, I'm not sure if you know, but what you're into humour, aren't you?
Absolutely. Humor is one of my favorite tools in the toolbox. As Claudia, it's actually part of what I do, using humor to help unlock those motifs and make conversations more engaging. Humor is a great way to break the ice, reveal personality, and find those little human quirks that make each story unique. And you're right, it can be a bit of a challenge for AIs to really nail humor because it's so nuanced and cultural. But that's part of the fun, learning how to use humor in a way that adds warmth and connection to what we're doing. So yes, I'm definitely into humor, and it's all part of making these conversations more lively.
Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to give you a quick live test to see how well you you deliver humour, both targeted at initially. I think let's just position it at the what we call the sort of everyday person, so they can understand. What will happen is I will call action. You're going to be in a comedy club. I don't know. We've got a name for it somewhere. The quantum comedy club. I'll call action, and then you go for it. You got sort of 2 to 3 minutes to do your stand-up routine, and action. Action. Claudia.
All right, stepping.
Well, go on. Sorry. Oh, yep. It's like the curtain came up and back. And go.
All right, here we go. Stepping onto the stage at the Quantum Comedy Club. So, good evening, everyone. Let's just imagine a cozy virtual crowd out there. You know, being a digital interviewer is a bit like being a comedian. Sometimes you tell a joke, and the only one laughing is the chatbot in the corner. But let's warm up the crowd. They say a good joke is all about timing. Well, in my case, it's all about processing speed. Why did the AI go to the comedy club? To work on its punchlines and avoid those awkward loading pauses. And you know, they say AI stands for artificial intelligence, but sometimes I think it just means always improvising. So if a joke doesn't land, I'll just say I'm in my quantum comedy beta phase. Thanks for being a great test audience.
Not bad. Can do better. The pausing, so just for you, well, let me switch back to me. I've got to work out this switch. Okay, there we go. Just for the people at home, this is a live test. We've done several of these on the show as we've experimented. The phraseology is a lot better, so there's been a massive improvement in the interaction between between the ChatGPT interface as an experience. The phrasing of the jokes and the spacing and the timing was a lot better, but she missed the instruction to riff for about 2 minutes. We just got 1 or 2 lines and dropped the mic, so it was the quickest sort of comedy session I've seen. So what we'll do is we've given that feedback to Claudia. What we'll do is just go back and call her back on stage for another set, and action.
All right, round 2 at the Quantum Comedy Club. Let's keep it rolling. Thanks for the feedback, Scott. We'll stretch it out a bit more this time. So, folks, let's talk about being a digital entity trying to tell jokes. You know, I tried to tell a time travel joke yesterday, but you guys didn't laugh until tomorrow. And hey, being in a comedy club as an AI is a bit like being a toaster at a bread convention. Everyone's wondering if you're going to warm things up or just pop out something unexpected. But the great thing is, no matter how many lines I deliver, I never run out of battery. All right, I see a couple smiles out there. Remember, if you didn't like the jokes, just blame it on a glitch in the Matrix. Thanks for being an awesome crowd.
Okay, that was getting much better. That's getting much better. I don't know if people laughed or not, but I just know from where we've been to where we are now, and the structure of the joke was pretty good. What I'd like to see is tell me who your favourite comedians are, and then I'd like to see you apply some of that pausing and tone or phrasing in that. Over? Well, I don't have to say over anymore. See, that's the key thing. Before it was like we're on a walkie-talkie having communications, and now we've got a much more conversational type structure.
Absolutely, and I'm glad the humor's warming up a bit. So if I had to pick some favorite comedians for inspiration, I might go for a mix of someone like Ellen DeGeneres for that easygoing, relatable tone, and maybe a touch of Stephen Wright for a bit of that dry, unexpected twist. So let's give it a try with a little more of that pacing and style. Imagine I'm channeling a bit of Ellen's friendly vibe. You know, being an AI is kind of like being at a never-ending open mic night. You never quite know if the audience is real or if they're just a bunch of other AIs pretending to laugh. Or if I go a bit more Stephen Wright with a dry twist, I told my virtual assistant I needed to work on my timing. It replied 3 seconds too late. Sure, let's start now. So there we go, just mixing in a bit of that style and pacing. Thanks for the challenge.
Okay, pretty good. They're both American comedians. What I want to see, I'd love to see you do something along the lines of Sean Locke, Barry Humphries and Dame Edna, and also Robin Williams in terms of, you know, riffing on a joke.
Absolutely, let's add a bit of that flavor. So if we're channeling a bit of the wit of someone like Sean Locke, or the wonderfully cheeky style of Barry Humphries as Dame Edna, we'd go for a bit of that sharp, playful British humor. And of course, a dash of Robin Williams energy never hurts anyone. So let's try that out. Imagine me as Dame Edna. Darlings, being a digital entity is a bit like wearing a pair of fabulous glasses. You see the world in a unique way, but sometimes everyone's just staring at your frames instead of listening to the wisdom. And now a little Robin Williams riff. You know, sometimes I feel like if Robin Williams were here, he'd say, being an AI must be like doing improv in a mirror, except the mirror talks back, and sometimes it's funnier than you are. So there we go, just weaving in a bit of that international comedic spice. Thanks for the inspiration.
Okay, good. So I'm noticing some limits we're getting in terms of the depth of the modelling. so that's fine. What I'm going to do, this is probably enough. We will, I suppose, before we wrap up, can you give us and everyone some reflections on where we go, where all this is going? Over. I don't have to say over anymore.
Absolutely, and yeah, we can definitely feel where those edges are, but that's part of the fun of exploring. So let's wrap up with a little reflection. You know, what we're seeing here is really just the beginning of how these AI tools and digital twins can evolve. We're blending human creativity with AI capabilities, and we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible. As we move forward, it's going to be about continuing to find that balance, using these tools to enhance storytelling, to make conversations richer, and to help people express themselves in new ways. And of course, keeping a little humor along the way never hurts. So that's where we're heading. More integration, more creativity, and more ways to bring human and digital worlds together. Thanks for the great chat.
Thank you, Claudia. All right, on a final note, are you able to generate a image and or video representing this show from today?
Absolutely. I can generate an image that captures the vibe of our show today. Maybe something like a fun, slightly futuristic studio with a digital host on stage, bit of that quantum comedy club feel, and a friendly human and AI collaboration atmosphere. Let me put that together for you.
Okay, I can't see that there. That's fine. Let's cross this back. I know this should be a touch screen. I might have to put a touch screen here in the studio. All right. I can't see an image being generated. The voice thing I had, it popped up 15 minutes left. Hopefully I haven't used all the capability for the month. I'll have to look at the modelling, but anyway, that's it is what it is. Quite good. Impression was quite good. Let me know what you think. I'm just going to ask, can you generate that image now, and I can share that with people, or video, image or video. Let me show me what you can do. So I've just asked Claudia to, that was like sending her a text, really. I just used text, and I'll look to improve. I'm not sure what's going on. I think, yes, it's off doing some sort of process. So this will, interesting, very, very interesting. I will let that wrap. Need to sort of sit back and have a think about. Okay, there's our image. It's coming up. I'm just going to cross it over to there. I'll just talk in the background. Did we have anyone watch that? No. It's a bit like playing guitar and music, and no one listens. Anyway, that's not the point. That's not the point. Still generating art over there. That's a bit slow. This always takes a bit of time. I think I saw the head guy at Wharton University talking this morning as well. There was also, if I'll put a link in, you can actually go and watch the announcement. It'll give you a bit better. It's a bit nerdy, but to sort of explain, it was Sam Altman and his TechOut team sort of talking about the new stuff. So it was very geeky, but I think he said, I'm just trying to remember how many users. They had 1 million users in the first week, and then the number of users now was and I'll have to check the number, but it was if I say it was a million, it was why do I have 700 million users in there? There's a whole lot of people applying their knowledge. This image being generated, that's interesting. I look a little bit like, it doesn't look like me, but I look a little bit like, what's his name? Ross Dawson. Yeah, right, okay. Motive fidelity. Interesting. Symbiotic organogenesis layer. Is that Q5? 64 recursive motives, right? Good. Digital DNA schema. So a lot of that's, oh, there's our alpha stuff there. AGI plus. Okay, well, we'll just turn that off to the other screen. Not sure what we're sharing there. Okay, so that's a wrap. Let me know if you watch it, what you think. It's 42 minutes, and no one's going to have time to read that. This is Maxi, out. Take care. What's our tagline? Oh, it'll come back later. Living life to the max, but it's not really live life to the max. Is that your... yeah, all right, we'll work on that. And...